Welcome to AI Everywhere Leaders podcast, where we explore real world applications of artificial intelligence and their impact on business leadership. I'm your host, Adriana, and today we're diving into one of the most critical conversations in AI today: how to build trustable, ethical, and governed artificial intelligence systems that drive business value while maintaining human oversight and social responsibility. With us today is Fabio Ardossi, founder of the House of AI and a seasoned leader within the data and AI industry. Fabio has impressive experience both industry and academically in developing data-driven decision systems that prioritize ethics, governance, and sustainable impact. At the House of AI, he focuses on helping businesses, small, medium, integrate sustainable growth with AI solutions that are not just powerful but trustworthy. Fabio, welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Adriana, thank you very much for hosting me. Thank you very much for the invite. I will be more than happy to discuss the topic around, well, more than one topic around artificial intelligence, which is something I'm working on since now almost the beginning of my career in different ways, and ready for the discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, Fabio. Before we dive deep into today's conversation, into the technical aspects of it, I wanted you to share for our listeners what led you personally to focus specifically on trustable AI and why this concept is so crucial for business leaders today.
Yeah. So as I was saying, it's now more or less 15 years I'm working in the data space. At the beginning, it was mostly working from corporate point of view. It was most working on having good quality of the data because the main goal was to have reports with qualified data. The landscape evolved very quickly. At the beginning was data and a little bit of data mining. That was the main, let's say, topic that you were getting some insights. But because the topic was mostly in financial data, kind of the quality of data was coming out of the certification, the validation of the data. The landscape in the last 15 years evolved a lot. One big moment was actually from a technical, technological point of view was the emerging big data technologies. And in that moment, we managed to bring inside the systems a variety of data that we couldn't think before. That moment gives two things. One, of course, from a technical point of view, the ability to open not just financial data, but the so-called unstructured data, so documents, images, sounds, music, everything that you could think about. So the only challenge was making them digital and then putting it into a system. And of course, the other one was the knowledge. So everything that you could put into a digital form was basically being crunched by systems. At that point, there wasn't necessarily the source at the beginning to validate the data. And then fast forwarding now, all the artificial intelligence systems have been trained not only on qualified certified data, but on a variety of data that it's difficult to validate. And that open the so-called alignment or ethical AI. So if an intelligent and digital and artificial intelligence is trained on data which is not qualified, how we can trust the information and then the outcome and outputs of the information. And the beginning for me was when I started to develop the machine learning, which is a little bit in the middle between data mining and artificial intelligence. Then I started to understand that if you were going to develop machine learning models on top of not trained data, and you can see it's public, then you can have all the kind of outputs and outcomes that can actually backfire your brand, first of all, as a business, and create the so-called not trustable systems into the artificial intelligence. And that was the moment in which I said, okay, that is something that we need to keep into account. That was the beginning.
You kind of anticipated my train of thoughts. So I was going to ask you about how do you recognize what's trusted AI and what's not trusted really? So probably for our listeners that maybe are not technical, what piece of advice would you give them on how to identify that? There's been data breaches we've seen recently. There's been a data breach that wasn't a data breach, it was just users not knowing how to set up their chats and so on. How can a user that's not technical and doesn't have as much experience realize how to filter what's trustworthy and what's not trustworthy? It's a hard question. I know. I don't expect you having all the answers. I just want to know your perspective on this.
I believe that this is, as you said, a big question. Um, let me let me give a comparison. It's a good starting point. It's not so different from some other, let's say, either physical or digital source of information or source of products that we use. So if you take two comparisons, if you take, for example, knowledge, information, the trust is built in knowing what you are reading. So if you take magazine or a newspaper, the first filter is the trust on the brand or the title, or you know who is writing or the author, one of the two. So we in the years that both in the educational part of our life, so when the trust is mostly building our close network, the family, the friends, the trust comes from that side. And then
from your own bubble.
Yes, yeah. That is actually how you build the beginning of the trust. In fact, it's true that often, just a little bit aside, often social networks are getting more trust than like official sources because you have more trust, but not necessarily are real information. So with the use of artificial intelligence in a lot of systems, we created the same thing. And so the comparison is the same with products. So you buy products at the grocery shop because you know the brand. Often you don't read, for example, ingredients. You don't read where they are produced because you believe in the brand. Now, I'm not entering into that word if it's good or not, but it's true that from a practical point of view, you go to the shop and the first trust is the shop. So you go to a grocery, one brand. Then you buy products and you trust the brand. Of course, it's on average. There are people that they read everything. There are people that they read nothing, but the trust is often there. Now, the question is who you have to trust when it comes to artificial intelligence, because who is building the artificial intelligence systems? That's the big question, both from a technical point of view. So who is building the AI systems, and also from consumer point of view, who is consuming using artificial intelligence. And that's the big thing. So the trust comes from using it. The trust comes from certifications. The trust comes from a word of mouth. So I used already from, and I know from someone else. So the advice, it's the very basic level is start to understand what you're using first. And if you don't know, for example, using a very well-known product, ChatGPT, which is the very well-known generative AI product. The first question is, do you know how the information are collected? And if you don't want to enter into the technical thing, can you trust the information are giving you? Simple test. So if you do some basic things, then you can start to understand how to use artificial intelligence. Now, the point is how you can check. That's the big question. And the push to the companies, and this is exactly where actually started the House of AI. So the company I started was exactly in this gap. So how you can build for brands the trust in delivering systems or solution or products through artificial intelligence, avoiding consumers, users, people, then at the end, on the other side, to basically lose the trust because you don't know which technology the brand is using, how it's used. And it's big because there is a technical side. So which technology you are using, which data you are using, which outcomes you are having. So this is a big gap for brands. So from a consumer point of view, ask, reach out to the brands, try to understand how they are using artificial intelligence. And on the other side, brands, be prepared because consumers will ask you. It's an interesting point. So let's focus on Europe.
Mhm.
So Europe, especially with the acts, UK is quite aligned. Of course, we know that the global landscape is it's different. I mean, there are different countries moving in a different way. Let me be a little bit controversial here. Even if Europe, I think it has always done a great job to regulate not only for artificial intelligence. I mean, it's in general.
In general, for data, also
Yes.
with the
Yeah. So,
data,
yeah.
the GDPR, and yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I
It's actually
agree.
started
I
in.
lived marketing and sales before GDPR and after GDPR, and I do think it has brought lots of protection for the consumer itself. Like you know now what's happening with your data, companies know what they need to do with your personal data specifically. So I will
Yeah.
pause here.
And I think it's important. Now, uh, being controversial is because of because the technology is new. It's important that the two things go in parallel, which means that regulation should arrive and should regulate the way that especially brands or companies are producing AI powered products, because we need also to clarify that pure artificial intelligence systems are one thing, and products built on top of artificial intelligence is a slightly different things. So one side is regulated that, but on the other side, it's important that in some way, who is building solutions at the moment, they try to think about the market needs and not necessarily to put in front of the product's regulation, but they have to follow the regulation. So let me explain again. Originally from Italy, and the regulation around food is massive. You have certifications for how you harvest the food, how you produce the product, how you distribute. You have regulation for almost everything from of the supply chain, from literally the beginning to how you consume on the table. Olive oil is an example. So you have different ways to like regulate the olive oil. Now, what is happening, and I'm taking just this as an example. So what the regulation is saying is not that you cannot, for example, produce, there are some limitations, of course, but not that you cannot produce some type of olive oil, or you cannot produce, or you can distribute some type of olive oil. But if you want a certification, then you have to do in a specific way. Now I would think in a better regulated environment like this, something where you have, of course, in a critical environment, healthcare, very strict regulation, because you want to be sure that it's regulated in a way that it's safe for consumers. But if you want to use in less regulated, less regulated, it sounds strange because maybe no, it's like it's unsafe. No, if you want to use where you know that you are using something like, again, olive oil, you know that you can buy on the market something which is not certified, and you take the risk because you know it's not certified. But there are different reasons why you are taking the risk. Most of the time on the food, you know, it's the pricing point. In artificial intelligence, is different. You want to have a more open system. I think that this is the convergence. So it's like leaving experimentation and some systems that can follow the flow of like using artificial intelligence. But on the other side, having strong certifications, like someone who has to certify that that system is following or is it's certified on safety, bias, for example, biases on the data used, training set, biases on the outcome. So I want to see that certificate because I want to be sure that there are two ways of working: regulations, brands following the rules on having the certifications, but also having some exploratory. That's a good landscape to have final product certified, tested, but also space for regulations. If you're too strict, it's difficult to evolve. It's difficult to find something new that you can use. So I think now this is what you want to do. Of course, it's not food. It's not olive oil. So artificial intelligence is way more complex.
Yeah.
Now, what you want to do is actually something which, and this is, I think, the word I would use. It's alignment. Because for the past 5, at least to 7 years, we use the word ethical AI, but ethical AI is often misleading. Because what is ethical for you
might be different for different people from different cultures, for different ages, with different backgrounds, different beliefs, and so on. That's a very complex topic. Let's not deep dive into that because we will stay here forever. So what I understand is that the House of AI, you help businesses build AI systems that are regulation ready from the ground up. I just wanted to kind of underline that because I think it's very important to highlight this very important plus value added that you bring to the business. What does it mean? You implement proper documentation, you have the human oversight mechanism, you ensure the data quality and all the monitoring is done correctly. That's my takeaway. Did I get it right? Did I miss something?
Correct. So the House of AI eventually focused on delivering, especially to small and medium businesses. So companies that usually they need to quickly adopt technology or solutions to solve business challenges.
So, quick question. By small, medium businesses, what exactly do you mean? What's the size? Where are we talking about 15 to 20 employees to 500? Kind of what's your definition? Because I've seen each person I speak with has different definitions for small, medium businesses.
So for me, small, medium is not necessarily a matter of size, but yes, of course, it's like probably around 500 employees, 1,000 could be still over 1,000 usually. That's more what I'm looking for is like you don't have a fully dedicated team on data and artificial intelligence. Smaller, you have even less. You don't have, you just outsource. So those businesses that they cannot dedicate fully the team. Sometimes you have maybe one person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Can you walk us through a terminology I keep hearing more and more? The human in the loop. Can you share with me what does the human in the loop system looks like from the House of AI perspective, from your perspective, and how do you balance the AI efficiency with the human oversight?
So I think that with what we discussed so far, it's clear that the so-called artificial intelligence systems are not ready to be fully automated. So we cannot think unless very specific niche situations that you can take a system digital or phygital, so like a combination of physical location and digital space. You cannot think of fully automated. So you deploy, you turn on a system and it's just working. So the human in the loop in the way that we are delivering solutions, in the way we see the market right now and the maturity of the companies and the team within the businesses is to have, let me simplify, having checkpoints. So the checkpoints is where people with their own knowledge, which is personal and company knowledge, both, because you have to also understand how the brand is working. So understand that artificial intelligence, if it's fully automated, can be aligned or not just to personal view, but also to brand and business view. So you need a person, a physical person who is able to understand that the outcome of a automated system is flowing in the proper way. Some examples from the past when it was only we were talking just a robotic process automation, so it was very simplified version of like artificial intelligence right now. It was milestones. So the automation was producing something, the person was waiting, reviewing the result, and then moving on. Now it's more evolved into kind of alarm. So you have situations in which either it's required, so the consumer is calling call center, and on the other side there is an automated system, and the consumer can ask for a person. So that is because it's not able to solve through the automation. Don't think about the automation 1, 2, 3, 4, like select the number. It's literally conversational. So you speak with a digital voice, but you are not able to solve. So then it's a alarm which trigger the human in the loop. Or the other way around, there are now systems that, given the information you are collecting, the tone of voice, being on the other side, if the person is, the old way, correct, like you understand and you trigger like, okay, it's better if I stop here and I require the support of a human. So those are more advanced because it's not necessarily the intervention of a person, but you are always ready to get the intervention of a person. That's the evolution of human in the loop. That's especially on the end side of the systems. Let's say on the hidden side, under the hood, there is still a lot of human intervention. Training the models, understanding the outcomes are properly is still ongoing work. So even if the businesses are building on top of solutions that are ready to use behind the scenes, either internal or with the support of other companies, which is, for example, where the House of AI is helping, you need a team. There is the technical term is fine tuning. So they are reviewing how the model is, the data, the new data, and the models. So human in the loops is still an important part, and it's actually a human that is setting and refining models.
Thank you, Fabio, for your thorough explanation, I would say. What, from your perspective, because I know you've been working with so many customers on AI projects, data, machine learning, and also AI and generative AI projects, what are the most common misconceptions you see businesses, business owners, business managers when it comes with working with AI? It might be AI governance and ethics.
So it's evolving, of course. But the first one actually is linked to your question. The first misconception is that they put everything together when it comes, for example, the current landscape of technology and AI, generative AI, is put together. That's the first thing. So every time you are talking about AI, because most of the time you're talking about artificial intelligence, in the mind of the people is generative AI, so ChatGPT. Right now, most of the case is like putting up the two things together.
Do you still see, sorry, do you still see business owners, business managers associating AI with the ChatGPT or all the chats? It doesn't have to be ChatGPT, it can be Claude AI or Manus or whatever. Do you still see that misconception happening? Because I was thinking that we're past that. I was thinking that people realize that's just an interface and that's just chat. That's not.
Still see a lot, maybe a little bit less into ChatGPT
Mhm.
because of the single product. True that I would say probably until end of last year or early this year, if you were asking uh, in a room, ChatGPT, 99% of the people was raising the hand. If you were asking, do you know Claude, 20% was raising the hand. If you were asking Gemini,
So I'm not going to say, do they know about Manus or Gemma from Google? I'm not going to ask that. That's next level.
yes. So it's even more because I'm often doing guest speeches to university. So the age is different. Like let's say 19 to 21, 22. And it's even worse because most of them are using ChatGPT. Again, some, of course, they know Claude, some, uh, but they've been so good in pushing like the name that they don't even know. And then the following question is, okay, fine. So you know ChatGPT. Do you know generative AI? No, never heard. So it's like the disconnection is high. So going back to this is especially at the university where business universities is slightly different because new generations are consuming technologies, so they don't really ask themselves what's behind. Businesses are different because they want also to understand what's going on. So maybe if you ask ChatGPT and you say, "Is it generative AI?" Maybe they say yes. We know that it's generative AI. But often they don't know that there are, for example, other names, Claude and what we said. But again, ChatGPT, generative AI, and AI often is seen like it's just ChatGPT. So the first part actually is still educating the workforce, starting from university or like a current workforce to understand the differences. And you find a mix. You find people using a lot of tools, but not understanding what's behind. And the misconception is putting everything together and not understanding where they can actually get the benefit of using artificial intelligence as an umbrella of approach and tools. Because also you have to differentiate how to approach the use of data with models, so more machine learning standard, which is still artificial intelligence, tools which is, for example, LLMs through the use of generative AI products, but a lot of other things in artificial intelligence umbrella. So yes, it's still a big misconception of putting everything together. And the misconception is basically, oh, I'm going to ask the two sides of the same coin. Oh, I'm going to ask a question and it's giving me the answer 100% correct. That's one thing. And the other one is, and there are boards, companies that they are adopting. Okay, let's do it because it's easy. And the other one is just blocking because that's the other side of the same coin. Is like, I'm not using it because artificial intelligence is they are taking all your information, all our private information, and you are gonna um, share everything that you know. So I'm not using it. I was like, maybe it's not one side, not the other. You should find the balance in the middle because you know that from a technological point of view, you can balance the two things, which is exactly what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting perspective. I'm a big fan of Gemini, Manus, Claude as well. For some reason, ChatGPT's personality I don't like lately. I don't know. It was a change that happened at some point with the 3.4 3.5 model, I don't even remember, when although I have a paid subscription to it, I literally stopped using it. It annoyed me so much. It was giving me lots of nonsense and lies. It's interesting to see the differences you observe between business users and then students, because I think, that's also an interesting perception. Let's focus on B2B marketing professionals because obviously AI transparency and ethics it's highly important, and I'm very interested in the topic myself. So I wanted to see from your perspective, what would you recommend marketing professionals in terms of communicating AI and AI capabilities responsibly? I know everybody's hyped in marketing now to work as a product marketing manager for AI. Very few people actually have been doing product marketing for technical companies 10, 20 years ago. So I feel like everybody's hyped to go into product marketing. So what's your perspective about that? What would you recommend B2B marketing professionals that work in tech when it comes in promoting, advertising, using artificial intelligence?
So I think here is a blended of my experience from the ground, what I'm doing, the companies I'm helping, my personal view on this. I was, funnily enough, just yesterday, I watched a video, and it was a marketing video from a car manufacturer. And the car manufacturer was promoting innovation. At that time, it was basically creating automated production line for cars. And the video was focusing on operational efficiency and having sorted specifically the quality and the speed. Guess the year. 2030. So recently, 3 years ago, I stopped 1 second, then I continue. Recently, through the business school, we went to visit one highly innovative production line, which was, so we visited physically, so we see in the production line. It was highly automated in a way that was promoted by the video, exactly the same. And it was, when we visited, it was like, it's the highest automated efficiency. I mean, everything that you can think about innovation on a production line. Not people, again, the human in the loop. It was there. There was one person for each plan to check everything was okay. But to be fair, it was highly automated. And myself included with all the others, we were like, honestly, we were like amazed how efficient, and it was 2 years ago, probably more or less, or three. And I couldn't think about something similar in terms of innovation. Was like, okay, that's the evolution. That's something that we never seen before. And I didn't see that video before yesterday. It was the first time. So this video is, believe me or not, is from 1979.
Oh, wow.
So again,
Wow.
1979. So it's more or less 46 years ago when,
You were not born back then.
yeah, yes, yeah. So at that time, Fiat. So it was a video for Fiat, which was actually launching, but it was the actual production line. So it wasn't fake. The video was actually, of course, it was created in a way that was showing more than probably the production I was automated. But it was like you can imagine the robot art, they are like doing something. It was there. That one is interesting for a lot of reasons. Well, first of all, it's 45 years ago. The automation that we think that it's recent, it's actually 45 years. That's one interesting thing. And that it's opening one thing from one side. It's like, it's not the technology that it's changing how we are operating, but it's the adoption of the technology where it's changing. And I'm telling this because, first of all, the innovation that you can think about is the innovation that it doesn't allow the brand to be as effective as you can think, because Fiat now as a brand, as a company doesn't exist anymore. We know that Fiat is just a brand, but it's now owned by another company. So it didn't help in 1979 to automate to be more effective on the market. That was very interesting to see. The second thing, and then I read aside of the video, I read some information because I was checking, like, is it the other fake video someone created? It's an actual video. And funnily enough, I found an article saying at that time, Paul, outside the factories were actually doing strikes. Why? Because they were complaining about automation and machines replacing people.
Yeah.
1979, again, in 45 years, still people in a very different way, they are still working in factories producing cars. So yes, it changed, of course, a lot, the labor system, a lot of things changed. But now there you can see in a short video, you can see a lot of things that are happening right now the same. Now I diverge a little bit on the topic, but I think it was funny. I wanted to mention this. If you have time, go and look at the video because at least for me, it clicks so many things, especially now that everyone is talking, oh, we are being replaced and companies will survive if you apply AI, if you not. No, it's not the technology. It's now, it's not just the technology itself. It's how you adopt the technology into your processes and how you evolve your company into using the technology. When it comes to the marketing, now, of course, it was interesting because it was linked to the marketing. That's the reason why I did this example. But artificial intelligence now, so more into using artificial intelligence for the marketing, less how you market the artificial intelligence use, which is anyways connected. It's again, it's very, very much linked. So it's true that the current technologies are opening up new ways to especially doing content, especially creating and generating new way of doing the process itself. Thinking about generating positively the marketing side, you can automate the processes, reaching out the people. You can create content on demand. Literally, you could create in few seconds a content based on who is watching. So imagine that the powerful thing that you can. So the process is simple. So if you go to any tool and you put some tags, any happy family in a sunny city. 1 minute now, you can have a video, 15 seconds, produced from scratch. You don't have to pick up a video tagged with this. You literally built from scratch. So imagine all the real-time advertisement that in the past it was real-time in a way like maybe recognize a family which is a little bit sad, and they pick up from the database with the tags the advertisement. You literally create on demand. So imagine how we are changing the way. And that's the place I would imagine that the marketing, how it's changing. So the place is how you rethink processes to leverage the solutions. And that is changing everything. And that is also on the other way for who is thinking about how to use AI for marketing is way where you see the expertise. So coming in and saying, oh, there is this tool that can change the marketing, which most of the time is a wrapper, literally a wrapper of ChatGPT, and coming with that tool and saying, okay, now we can create this video from scratch in 30 seconds. Fine. I mean, you can technically use. It's not that it's changing the way you are doing marketing. It's changing in how you are thinking the process from scratch. Like this is an example. Maybe it's not even applicable, but just talking with you, you can imagine a new process in which you are reusing the technologies to rethink the way that you are doing marketing. And B2B, the B2B space, it's full of potential because one.
No, and I don't know why I'm not seeing it. I've started doing, my business plan was not to do AI training for marketing teams. Let's be honest, super honest. That was not my business plan, guys. So 6 months ago, I never wrote in any iteration of my business plan that I'm going to train marketing teams on how to use AI, what they can do with AI, and organize hackathons for marketing teams. No, that was not it. I was thinking about doing the B2B marketing agency to help tech companies grow at scale, sort of a Mad Men old school sort of agency, but using technology. So every time I had a conversation with a CMO, marketing leader, or even sales leader, we were ending up to the conversation, can you please teach my people to know what you are doing? Became more and more a conversation, day by day conversation, really. And so that's how I ended up doing the trainings. Why we don't see yet the marketing B2B enhanced AI campaigns, I don't know. I feel like people are still being shy about it. Is it an issue of enablement? Do we need more hackathons for marketing people? If you want one, contact me. I don't know what's the issue, but the hyper personalization, it just opens up, like in the factory, in the example you gave. Automation has been in the factories, has been in the beer factories, has been like we have robotics and automation for decades. It's not something new. It's just how do we adapt it to the current realities so people can actually spend less time in working and more time in relaxing and enjoying life. I think as humans, that should be our direction to head towards. I will stop here. I wanted to ask you about another topic about AI washing. So I keep reading articles about marketing teams. I also observed lots of specs that are saying, this software does this and this and this, and then I purchase the subscription or I download it to test it and it's not doing what it's written on paper. Even if it's a business tool, it's promoted marketing wise. The words are saying it's a business tool, but then it really it isn't. I avoided shaming anyone online. I don't want to do that, but I observe it happens more and more. So how do you know what tools to use? Is it better to build as a business owner or as a small medium business as you're working with them so much? Is it better to work with the House of AI for building something custom for you and get advice on which software to use or integrate and have like the final custom made solution for you? Or what would you advise companies to do?
I mean, this is the Pandora box. Let me go back 1 minute to the one very important point that you touched, because it's also linked to the answer on the second part, like how you see the adoption, let me say, or how to integrate or adopt artificial intelligence. Education. Then it can go through different channels. I don't want to promote one or the other. I personally think that there are some more effective than the other, but education is the first layer. It's simple. I mean, I'm saying nothing new. Most of the time, you are hiring people either with experience or from the university or from educational path because of the education. So you cannot think that if you have an employee either in your company for a long time or even if it has gone through different companies but with the same skills and same background, you cannot think that after 10, 20, 30, 40 years of experience in something but without the knowledge of digital technology, artificial intelligence, can understand it. Because if you revert this into like, imagine that you are starting from scratch and you are hiring, which also most of the companies are doing, you are hiring someone from university. The first thing you probably want to understand if the person knows about artificial intelligence. So you have a big gap and you have to fill that gap. That's the first thing. So if you think that you can use artificial intelligence in your company as a soft, let's say, use. So you just put a tool and you ask to use, or a hard thing. So you rethink the entire process through artificial intelligence. If you have someone in the company, either one person or 99% of your employees not knowing the difference between AI, generative AI, ChatGPT, and Claude, you go nowhere. That's the first thing. So I'm with you when you say like workshop, training, class, in person, online, do something. I mean, the very least is like do something. The best is do something properly and engage with the person, with the employees. And the most that you can get out of it is actually, before even calling the house of AI, is prepare your employees to understand what's going to happen. Because otherwise it's a long journey anyway. Now, if you are a 10 or even more thousand of employees, it takes time. I understand, but you can avoid. So that's the first thing. The House of AI itself, of course, myself, I'm doing education. I'm exactly like you. I started, let's adopt the conversational AI, which is the peak of the pyramid that I'm supporting. And then you go down the layers and you understand that often people, they don't know the difference between the tools. So that's the first thing. The first thing. And when it comes to what I call adoption, that's the Pandora box. Why? Because you have different forces. And again, let me do a comparison. And you will find all the flavors. If you want to travel from point A to point B, what is your interest? What you want to achieve, how you want to do it. So you will find people interested in experiencing the journey. So they are actually interested to go from A to B with the bicycle, on foot, with the car, the bus, whatever. You will find a lot of other people interested to go from A to B and don't care how they arrive there. So imagine that the journey is actually the process. So all the companies are running on top of processes. All the companies can be manual, can be through advanced technologies, can be the Excel spreadsheet, can be paper, but they are processes. So you have to go from point A to point B, oversimplified. Of course, there are a lot of complexity in the middle. Most of the owners, this is valid for also large enterprises, of course, but especially in small, medium enterprises, if you want to run a simple process like getting the cash in your bank account, that is the process that you want to run, nothing else. If I go there with a product to the owner, but also to the team, and they say, this is a new tool that you can implement and then you can learn, and then it will optimize the specific process of getting the paper, scan the paper, tag the invoice, connect to the project or connect to the bank account. It was like, fine. But eventually, the interest is having the cash in the bank. So if I go there with another tool and call it ChatGPT, call it wrap of ChatGPT, call it wrap of the ChatGPT, it's not the functionality of what they want to listen. What they want to have is like, you can have your cash in the bank account with no delays and without errors. That's the ideal thing that they want to have. That's the important thing that is happening in the environment now. So instead of selling another tool, what you want to achieve is to enable the businesses to run processes on top of, say again, I used before, AI powered solutions. Often they are not interested if I'm using ChatGPT or Claude. They are not interested if I'm running on one cloud or the other. They are not interested if there is a feature or the other. They want to be sure that their specific service is solving that specific, let's say, process, not necessarily a challenge. Sometimes it's very operative process, the cash in the bank account. So imagine what you want to achieve. The very simplest thing is, and that's the focus of the House of AI when I'm talking with the owners, is like, you want to get the simplest interface, because of course you have to interact with something, the simplest interface that can allow you to achieve this. Of course, the evolution of interfaces have been massive. Excel spreadsheet, then digital interfaces, then the desktop, then all on the desktop, internet, so browsers, then the application on the mobile phone, and now conversational systems that could be either through people. So you literally could have services in which you call and you ask, I have this invoice, can you confirm the invoice is valid, and you go to the bank account. And you can imagine this is the evolution. Now, instead of having people behind, instead of having softwares, you start to create automation in terms of having digital support, which eventually will lead to AI first because it's available, or let's say generative AI. So automated knowledge systems And then this is the natural evolution to agents. So you will have digital agents powered by generative AI and few other, let's say, technical artificial intelligence part. And then you will have something automated behind the scenes. So ideally, you will have a supplier sending an invoice, and you, as an owner, you will see your cash right on time. That is the discussion I'm having. So to get to this point, it's not ready. It's not enough just doing this. You map the processes, you understand which processes can go to which technology, which processes can go to automated technologies, say, for example, automated artificial intelligence interfaces. Some will be managed through conversational AI, so natural conversations. Some will be just behind the scenes. Some will still need like digital inputs. So that's the evolution of interfaces. And that's what most of the discussion with the business owners, CEOs, depending on the size of the companies, head of departments. And this evolution is leading towards the so-called AI agents. So the full automation of tasks on top of wider processes behind the scenes of a service. And the focus will be on the service. So what you want to achieve, what's the outcome of the service? And if you can scope the outcome of the service, then you will speak with the house of AI or any supplier on the outcome of the service. And then the service will be delivered on top of AI systems. That's the direction. It's a lot. I know. I'm quite active on LinkedIn to connect, to create them, to expand the network. And I think last week I put a short sentence, and it was something to trigger your thought in where you are as a company. You stuck. I wrote this. You stuck, and AI is the excuse. We are experiencing the opposite, and it's what you said. I'm not saying that you don't need governance, you don't need qualitative data, you don't need like operational delivery. But you cannot say I'm not ready to use AI to not use AI. And that's an important thing. And the main point here in this you stuck and the AI is the excuse is that you are starting to from that's my very personal opinion that I'm reflecting to how I help through the House of AI. Because you start from the technology. So going back to AB, which is usually it's like product and service. You know that most of the car manufacturers are moving into the service because no longer having a car is where you have the value. Because owning a car is no longer what you want. It's moving from A to B that is making you using a car or not. It's exactly the same. If you say like I'm not ready to drive the car, so I'm not ready to use artificial intelligence, it's an excuse because you don't want to use the car or the artificial intelligence. What you want to do is to improve the process to go from A to B. So you have to do a reverse engineer analysis. It's true that it's so noisy in the market. We are so much literally bombarded by AI. You see AI also on the public street. So I understand that you try to defend yourself, try to protect. But it's not saying I'm not ready to use artificial intelligence that it's you are you are solving your challenges. In fact, the approach is usually we map the processes, we review the processes, and we redesign eventually the processes to fit on the existing technology. And you will find out that often, especially and now I'm in favor of generative AI as a solution, you will find that nowadays, unless you are very regulated market, and unless a very specific niche market, for example, real-time emergency systems, where you need very specific data and there the data has to be extremely precise, you will find that having like perfect data is not going to solve your issue. And then you will continue to stuck. You know the term, the way that you say analysis paralysis, where you continue to do something, but you never finish. You continue to split the remaining part. So you have 100, you 50%, then the 50%, you split 50%, and you will never finish. That's exactly the same. So let's revert the angle. And that was like when the service is gonna into the technology, not the technology is gonna into the service. You don't need it. You need to understand how to solve your process or your business pain or your demand, and then you map the technology. And it's also where also bringing to on my side where everyone is saying now everyone can use artificial intelligence or everyone can use technology. True, you can quickly acquire the technology, but it doesn't mean that you are using in the proper way. And that's where do your own business and use the support of who also, to be fair, likes the technology and explore the technology. I can help you to map the technology under what you need. That's the very small, let's say, sometimes very small angle or point of view that I'm trying to bring the owners. Let's not talk about AI and technology to solve. We can talk about technology, of course, for ages, but not to solve your business. Tell me what is your business challenge, and then we will map and we will design that on the technology. That's the main important thing.
And then look at where the people in your company are with their AI skills, because they might be at different levels. They might go home and experiment half of the night with God knows what tools that are out there, vibe coding and all of that. So for marketing teams, again, we're getting back to the marketing teams. That's my last question about the topic, I promise. What role do you think marketing teams should play when it comes to gathering feedback and insights about AI, ethics, governance from customers and stakeholders?
I think so. Of course, when you work with a brand, forget about AI for 1 second, it's a tough job because you want to stick what you are, you as a company, you are, what you are serving, so the product or the services, with the consumers. So it's already a difficult job. When AI, let's say, comes into the context and it comes into the playing ecosystem. What is happening immediately is in the mind of the marketing in the marketing team is, and I'm experiencing often. It's a question that you have to answer because it's part of the strategy. Do I want to play transparently? Which means, do I want to say I'm using artificial intelligence, or I don't want to say I'm using artificial intelligence, but I'm using artificial intelligence? That's one big thing. I have my point of view. I don't have there isn't the correct answer. Then you take your choice, you decide, and then you go into the market, and then I can tell you what can happen. So you have to be sure that you are doing everything to stick on your decision. The worst that can happen is that you are not saying you are using artificial intelligence. People find out, and like it is nowadays, this is like in general, the sentiment for artificial intelligence is very low because the idea is not trustable for a lot of reasons. So you weren't saying, so we are not trusting you. It's an example. I'm not saying it's happening, but it can happen. Another thing that can happen is you are saying, so just two examples, you are saying that you are using artificial intelligence. People can trust AI or cannot, or maybe they don't trust AI, but they know that you are using. Then you have to say why you are using AI, or how you're using AI, on which situation you're using AI. And often, I've seen recently an article. You are maybe saying, "Oh, I'm using artificial intelligence because it's allowing me to save money," and then all of a sudden, your trust goes down because okay, so you are, and you can feel the end of the sentence. Reducing the number of employees, you are making more money because you are reducing the cost, but the price is the same. I mean, you can two different decisions on the top, on the bottom. It really depends. Now, the important thing is that the storyline, the storytelling is consistent. So I'm not using artificial intelligence, or I'm using artificial intelligence. I'm not saying that I'm using artificial intelligence. You have to be extremely sure that what's happening at the end, it's consistent with what you are showing. For example, you're using internally for operational efficiency. It's not impacting the end user. That's fine. It's more you. Maybe you have more cost or less cost, but it's not impacting. This is some examples from my point of view. You are saying you're using artificial intelligence, often in conversational systems, especially nowadays that you can also simulate your own voice, that you use the artificial intelligence. You are saying that you are using artificial intelligence, but you are sure that it is with a purpose. So, for example, I was giving before in conversation car dealers. They can improve the operational efficiency on the end side, so on the consumer side, opening up the call center. So you know that instead of, it depends. It's like working from home. Some people are working 7 a.m., some people work 9 p.m. Same with the car dealers.
Also, with the car system, as I'm looking for a new car, I need to share that maybe somebody from the car industry is listening and they need to know that. Guys, when you want to buy a car, you look that car information for usually in the evening. Maybe it's just me, maybe something wrong with me. But whenever I want to talk with a car dealer, it's too late. It's past 8 or past 9. I have nobody to talk with. And the information, it's not online. I need to gather my information from magazines. I need to ask friends. I need to ask Uber drivers. So if any people working for car manufacturers are online, redo your marketing stuff because I do want to talk with someone. I don't care if it's a person, if it's an AI character, if it's an avatar. I do want to have a basic conversation with someone and understand how many miles can this electric car go for. Very simple, basic information that probably can it be arranged, Fabio?
Yeah, and that's exactly the example where you say like, I don't care who I'm speaking with because you know that you can gather information and the storytelling is simple. I'm opening up an artificial intelligence system that you don't call artificial intelligence, maybe call digital assistant. On the other end, you know that it's not a person, but it's like 10 p.m. and you are happy because you are after a day of work, you are sitting on your couch, you are talking with a car dealer assistant, you are gathering the information that you want. It's very nice usually because the systems are so advanced. Then you get your information and then you book an appointment when you can. You go there and you just close the last mile, which is usually, if you engage properly, it's literally buying a car or having the last information. And this is a completely different storytelling because if something is not working, you are not really angry at the system. You say, okay, I mean, it's 10 p.m. I try to use the assistant. I'm not getting the last mile on the last information, but it's fine. It's fine. And you are saying that this is an artificial intelligence system. So that's the play. That's the crucial point for marketing to play with artificial intelligence.
I was recently talking with some friends that are originally from China. They live here in London, and they were sharing with me some information that you can actually go on Kupang, which is like the Amazon, the Chinese Amazon. You can go there, and you can literally order your own car, and the car gets delivered as we would order a book here. The car gets delivered in front of your house, which I found like so advanced and a bit mind blowing. It's still probably a lot of education that needs to be done for us in terms of what can be possible. And it sounds like a movie, to get your car delivered next day in front of your house, or maybe 4 hours delivery, some crazy stuff like that. It's something that maybe we should consider, and maybe looking at what other regions are doing, because in certain industries, in some regions, I've seen in the US as well, they're already more advanced, I think, from that perspective than maybe we are in Europe on that particular use case. They have lots of avatars that you can actually talk with when it comes to real estate. Have you seen on real estate here in the UK or in Europe? I know you have customers all over. Have you seen any interesting use case on real estate or
Real estate is another interesting industry. Most of the time, when we think about real estate as consumer, we think about residential, but of course, you have commercial, you have B2B, you have funds, and they are investing a lot. So again, more in the engagement side of the real estate, where you want to build systems which are foster the interaction with the people, with the industry and with the domain. And when it comes to artificial intelligence or conversational AI systems, it's still the same. So there are some demand. There are some examples. I mean, some are consolidated. Again, having the data or not is playing a big part. So if you have a lot of historical data, you can play better. But it's also true that in different markets, UK as an example, you can access a lot of public data. So you can actually start very quickly to improve what you are doing. I think the idea here is more having a personal assistant, which is something that we are missing often. The market is so quickly. I recently rented an apartment here in London. And if you have the experience either renting or buying, it's slightly different, but the pain is similar. The market is quickly and it's very competitive. So because it's, especially if you buy, it's often an emotional thing. And what you cannot find is, and this is something that you maybe what you wouldn't think, and this is opening actually another topic, which is how emotional an artificial intelligence system can be. It's not proof because I mean research has to go, has to be long to have enough information. But there are already some research that shows that AI can understand more than people. So that's a big area,
That's
especially
the
in
that's
the
the
real estate.
sentiment. Yeah,
It's
the sentiment analysis report. Yeah, I've read some of those as well, and it's quite interesting. And I was thinking, how can we apply this actually in real life systems? But yeah, you're right. It's a whole new
a real estate.
layer.
It's a big thing. So real estate here on this, it's a layer, first of all. And it's like where you have the systems that are working properly on information, then what are you missing? You remember the metallic voice of the first, what we were calling chatbots. Select one or two, you remember, something like
Yes.
this.
That's really good. That was a really good impersonation.
Yeah, I was training in the past. Now I'm joking. So that was the past. Now they are advanced, but what they are missing is the emotional side. Funnily enough, they can achieve more. Not the level of a good trained person who can, of course, manage the emotion, but there is a cultural bit too, which is I'm into also the multicultural environment and how you manage multicultural ecosystems and interaction. That's the next level. Now the point is in the real estate world, imagine that you are buying a house and you engage in a long process and part is emotional. Imagine the frustration of a combination of what you were saying, not having enough information, like the car example, but then not having the house that you want, link on making plans because maybe you want kids, maybe you have needs with the family, extended family, close family. You want a neighborhood instead of another, but you have a budget. I mean, you have so many things. You have to ask for a mortgage. So it's so frustrating. And then you call a number on the other side. There is nothing against like young guys, but often it's like, yeah, you can imagine, oh yeah, this house, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. And then it was like, oh, but that's my house. And then you visit the house and the guy said, oh no, actually this one has been sold. But we have other three houses. And you are so like annoyed, frustrated, everything combined. So real estate is actually have a massive place to improve how you can engage with the people. I'm not, I'm, that's the other side I'm very much interested because from a very heavy technological background, I studied computer science ages ago. And 3 years ago, well, 1 year ago, I finished the business school. It would be more interesting to see how a new business model can you, instead of thinking just one price based on just market condition, actually a price based on how the negotiation is going because of the emotional side instead of pure cold transaction on the money. Can we think something about this? I'm not saying that there is.
Yeah, we can. We can. I studied computer science and I dropped out. I didn't finish it. I dropped out after a couple of years. But yeah, I think there's the perspectives of creating new things and analyzing systems. I always wondered myself this question. Why don't we use not only technical and business people or more complex people like yourself that have technical plus business expertise? Why don't we bring in also someone that studied psychological stuff, especially with all the apps where you have human interaction? I think there are lots of things there that one person can't know. You can understand business and technical, right? You can in a lifetime now you can learn those skills, but you don't really, or there are few people that can actually study also psychology, also gastronomy and so on, and create like have that whole perspective. Thank you, Fabio. Great to hear more about this topic. Now let's address the leaders listening. Beyond compliance and risk management, what strategic advantages can trustable AI provide to organizations?
Yeah, we covered a lot of parts that some way look like disconnected. It actually could be. We are still a very heavy humans-led environment, despite the big push of tech companies saying everything would be replaced. The example of 1971 automation, that it's after 45 years are still not there. Yeah. If you think about that, it's crazy. Then it opens up the discussion on your question. So how much you need to actually stick all these components together. So we touch about technology, about processes, how much AI can be inserted into a human in the loop context, everything. And we touch about education also important. So everything has to be led by one direction. And the direction is the main part. So you can put all the technology in place, but you cannot move the people and your organization and the business ultimately into one direction if you don't show literally the way. Now, when we talk about leadership, leadership is a big thing. You mentioned trust, and the question was also the trust or the trustable AI, but it's connected. So let me kind of dismantle the two things or the three things. One leader is effective among a lot of skills when you can trust the leader. That's one important thing. So leadership is creating the trust among the community or the employees or the organization, and you can set the pace. So in an age where artificial intelligence is so under the light, I cannot say technology or principle or models is a strange sound. Yes, so connected into a lot of things that the moment you just say, you've seen a lot of examples, public examples of CEOs announcing AI used in one way or the other and losing completely the leadership, which eventually is the trust. So we also talk about trust in artificial intelligence. So it's there that the leadership plays the most important thing. So we also talk about how the marketing could use artificial intelligence. But again, it comes from one specific vision that you have to set and then stick on that vision. So it can be let's say vision of the brand, so from more than one person, can be the CEO, can be the board. Not necessarily we need to link the leadership in this situation, in this context, to one person. And it goes into like, again, everything. You connect everything. You connect the storytelling, you connect the storytelling as to connect also to the way that you are using artificial intelligence. Because if you're saying I'm using artificial intelligence for good, but then you go back to your team and you say like use artificial intelligence to actually tweak how we sell products, then it's not consistent. So that in very short time, then you will lose everything again as a brand or as a CEO, as a board. So leadership is sticking together the vision that you have. You need to create very strong on this space. You need to be sure that, and this is the alignment we were talking about. So what you are doing with autonomous, digital, artificial systems, they have to be aligned with your vision, and you have to play with your organization in the same way. So you have to, if you're using artificial intelligence, you have to give the people the opportunity to learn about artificial intelligence. And then if you're using artificial intelligence that has to be trusted, you have to go to partners, suppliers, technology that you can trust as well. So you have to connect all the dots. So leadership under one person or a board or one vision, let's say one vision. So we stick to one thing, single thing. So you have to be consistent on the vision and you have to play into this. That's the most important thing. Because on the opposite, just to give the example of the opposite, where it's not working, is where you create the vision, we are AI driven company, and that's the vision, and maybe set up by the CEO or the board. And then you go into the company and they don't even know what artificial intelligence is. And then you go and you say, are you using to, for example, saving the time for the people, understanding how the people, the sentiment of the people. There are so small things that you can use in the operational side of the organization, and then it doesn't stick. So if your vision is like that, then you lose immediately. On the other side, if you say this is AI driven company and you provide to the people the training tools, the educational programs, the technologies, you help the people to integrate the artificial intelligence tools, approved, certified. Of course, you put boundaries, then it's a real AI driven company. And of course, because again, AI is a very broad topic, you have to be sure that under the umbrella of your definition of artificial intelligence, you have everything properly set, because it's a big thing. So you can say that still organization has to be led by purpose. That purpose has to be translated into a vision, and the vision has to be translated into like effective tasks, activities, processes, and the proper consistent ecosystem. So leadership is the thing, because it's keeping everything.
That's very well explained, beautifully put, very artistic. Did you study something also creative, like maybe the third one? But it's really well said, and it got me questioning and worrying about my company name, because I have AI everywhere. So like questioning, about that.
I think is actually the perfect name, AI everywhere, for one specific reason. First of all, because AI is everywhere and it's gonna be everywhere. But my job right now, because of course there are like waves, my job right now is to be sure that artificial intelligence, or whichever will be called, like augmented intelligence or whatever it is, will be adopted in the proper way with everything that we said right now. And the moment AI will be literally everywhere, it will be the moment in which you won't talk about AI anymore. And it will be the moment in which AI will be very useful to us. And every time I'm doing this comparison, which is I'm not the, I'm not the only one. I think it's really on the point, is about electricity. No one is talking about electricity anymore, but we are using electricity everywhere. We don't even think about where we are using electricity, because the components are so small that we don't think that, for example, the microphone has electricity inside. Very small, but still electricity. So probably 200 years ago, you would have a company called Electricity Everywhere, and it's exactly the same. So AI everywhere, it's exactly on the point, and it's amazing. I love when you said the name, because it's the direction, and it's where we want to arrive, because AI will be everywhere. So I think that that is the best way. And the factor that the technical knowledge of artificial intelligence, it's playing a part or not, and you have your view, your stories, your experience, my experience. It's where people will start to use AI without knowing the AI or how AI works, having ideas on top. That will be the moment in which will be extremely powerful. What we need to be sure is that AI is aligned with all the components that we said, because it has to be safe. Again, electricity is the same. No one knows how electricity works. Maybe we studied at school, but we forget. Maybe we have some basic elements, but we still create something on top of the electricity. So the story of someone telling I done this with AI, knowing zero about artificial intelligence, for me, it's amazing, because it's where we want to arrive. That is, I think, the direction. And because I'm always working innovation, so AI is a big thing now. Mm, In 10 years' time, we will talk about something else that will be created on top of artificial intelligence. That's the push. That's where I want to go.
Fabio, we talked about so many topics today, which was absolutely amazing. But before we close our conversation, I wanted to know, what's your view on future of work? What's your prediction? How do you think jobs are going to transform themselves or change as we move forward?
I think I can use the example, or I can start from the example of the 79. I wasn't prepared. It was literally it was a surprise for me. I was doing some research on the history of artificial intelligence, which is also funny, because I was doing some research on the history of artificial intelligence, and the video came up in some articles. So jobs are transforming, yes. So it means that some jobs will disappear, some jobs will appear. That's the evolution of the job market. We cannot avoid it. Now, if I look from employer point of view, organization point of view, what I want to be sure is that we were covering before, we were talking before, is I can evolve my ecosystem, providing support to people I have, employees I have, to be upskilled into what I'm evolving. So here is important, the storytelling, because if I'm saying nothing and all of a sudden I say, or you are too not skilled for this. And you as an employee, you look like, I didn't even know they were moving here. That's unfair. But if you are creating like the proposition of tomorrow, you share internally and you give the opportunity to people to reskill, that's the good thing to do. On the other side, we can forget that we are underskilled if we feel that we are underskilled, or if we understand that our skills are going to be, or we cannot. It's very market driven, because there are like countries that are more, they give you more assistance to this, so they protect you. Some other countries, they just push you. You have the skills, good. You don't have the skills, up to you. So there are different trends. So one message is, be consistent with your path. So if it's 20 years that you are not upskilling, do something, because it's what you have done the last time that you needed to get the skills for the job, whichever is the job. So I think this is the common sense. And with the artificial intelligence, the only thing is happening is, um, it's happening quicker than maybe it was happening before, but it's not different from before. So automation is an example. So in 1979, the trend started. So 45 years after, it's true that a lot of people are not doing anymore the production line, but it's still taking. I mean, there are still people on the production line. So probably it takes another 40 years to remove completely the people. In the digital space, because artificial intelligence is mostly changing the job in the digital space, what you want to understand is, where I can get some more skills that can help me to improve what I'm doing. And it's true that it's the same. It was happening in Italy for sure. I'm not sure if it was happening somewhere else. All no technical, technological universities were giving a certificate, which was on top of a training. And the training was as simple as learning the basic of PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. Nothing else. Why? Because at that time, I'm talking about probably 20-ish years ago, it was seen as the basic skills that you had to know, even if you weren't doing the technological thing. So think about the same. I'm not saying that everyone has to learn artificial intelligence. I'm also against that vision. I think that everything will evolve again into a different wave. But you need to learn basic things. So if we think that interacting with artificial intelligence or conversational AI systems will be the future, and I think this is the future to be, you need to learn how to interact. So prompting, which again, I'm not the first to say, understanding how to prompt is an essential skill. Because in the future, you will need to interact with AI systems. It's not different from how to learn to speak with the people, because speaking with the people, it's a basic skills that now we are, of course, learning from probably primary school. Now, learning how to interact with AI systems or digital systems, it's one step that you have to do. So it's reskilling in a way in which you have to think that soft skills are changing. I will call soft skills, not hard skills. And in some areas, especially in the more tech area, hard skills are becoming more important to understand how to develop artificial intelligence systems more than how to develop databases. That is like a skill that probably you won't need anymore in few years. So that's the angle. That's the angle. But study psychology, study sociology, uh, study something that fulfill the not digital, not technical, not hard knowledge that you can get from the massive information that artificial intelligence can get. And then you learn aside the other skills.
Would it still make sense would it still make sense in today's technology advancement for someone to go and study, for instance, communication, creative arts like painting, oil painting, and all of that? What do you think about this?
Of course, it's not my area of expertise. It's not my direct domain. But the I I'm smiling because I'm thinking, I'm reading some different, not just technical articles. Often you hear like arts created by artificial intelligence, and you say, oh, this is not art. I'm not talking about copywriting. That is a different matter. It's important, but I'm literally talking about like the creation of something through artificial intelligence. First of all, I have a friend who is doing like beautiful art with using artificial intelligence, and he started way before artificial intelligence was a thing, and that's amazing. But together with human in the loop, as we said before, or not in the art space, it's exactly the same of you remember like the paintings from the past where you were like literally painting the landscapes, and then we started to have modern art changing completely, and then it's very famous, the banana stick on the wall.
Mm.
And then
Yeah.
people say, this is not art. This is, and you can complete the word, the sentence. There was art. Now, how you were seeing that art is completely different. How you see the contemporary art is completely different because art is evolving. Now, I'm using just this as an example. Music is exactly the same. So it's the media is changing. It's the way that you are achieving your result is different. So my my incentive is especially for people working in that space. And again, I have a friend of mine who is active in this space. Look the potential that you can achieve because there is a green field that you can explore, and there is so much that you can do. That it's not a limitation. If you think as a limitation, and if you think that AI cannot achieve new art because art is only the paintings, that's you are not achieving new art. Otherwise, it's opening up a completely new world. And from my point of view, linked to everything we discussed today and also the art, I finish with my view, which is linked, of course, of what is moving me in my professional career, in my personal view, how I see the innovation, how I see the new technologies. Particularly, I'm a fan of a movie, and the movie is moving me. The direction is Matrix. Matrix, I think now has probably 20 years, if not 20, 15, well, probably 25, in something in between. I'm not commenting about Matrix 1, 2, 3. It's the principle, it's the concept, which is in a word, especially for someone. Often I'm finding people not knowing about Matrix at all. Sorry, I think the title in English is The Matrix. In Italian is it has been translated Matrix. Anyway, you got the movie.
Yeah,
In
yeah, we had.
in few words, is like the connection and disconnection of the digital world and the physical world. Basically, humans against machines. At that time, it wasn't called artificial intelligence; it was called machines. That's my direction. I don't want to say, and we know that often authors and writers actually gave the way to the future with creativity, with ideas. So I'm not far from that. We didn't even touch the interfaces, how we can connect to the digital world. I've done a lot of research and I produced some articles during the business school for some work on the metaverse. Now, metaverse is having up and downs, up and downs. The metaverse is the digital version of us in some way. I started with Second Life ages ago. Then we have a revamping with the metaverse. Now again, the metaverse disappeared a little bit. But there is one interesting thing there, the interface, how we communicate from the from the physical world into the digital world. And that's the direction I'm using. So there are interfaces very invasive, like the interface that you can connect with the brain, for example, which is open research field. But if you connect all the dots, how am I connecting all the dots? I'm going into the matrix direction. And that's the direction I see. It can be as dystopic as a world completely managed by machines where actually humans are slaves, can be completely different, can be actually humans having completely power of the machines and actually commanding the machines and just being a body, but just commanding the machines through the digital world into the physical world. It can be your view. But I think that that is the push of the innovation. And that is what is moving me into the technology evolution. And we can have another podcast of another 2 hours only of that specific field.
Another episode. We need to do another episode and see if it's the red pill or the blue pill. And that was always the question. Before we close today's episode off, which has been much longer than usually you are accustomed to, do you have any final thoughts or calls to action for our audience, where they can contact you and how they can reach you?
Yes, thank you very much, first of all, for having me for such long time, plus the informal conversation we had before. So I'm started around the House of AI because I want to address the pain of using artificial intelligence in a way that is trustable to consumers. I'm stressing this because, of course, my background is business and commercial. So I'm not naive in thinking about artificial intelligence in ways that you cannot really use. I'm focused on helping businesses to run the business and in some way forget about the technology, but enabling the businesses to be more effective in what they are doing through artificial intelligence. The audience can reach out to me on the usual channels. One is LinkedIn. So you can find me under my name, Fabio Ardossi, or you can find me under the House of AI, the page. And you can reach out to me through the public email concierge at thehouseofai.ai. And the response is quite easy. If your pain is employing or adopt artificial intelligence into your processes, that is the area of interventions. And my focus is making the interaction as smooth as possible. So I'm calling conversational AI, but it's like making the human AI interface as smooth as possible to focus on engaging with the process and not with the technology. Because the technology should stay as electricity under the hood and having you focused on moving from A to B.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining today, Fabio. It was absolutely great pleasure talking with you. Your insights on AI governance and trustable AI and all the use cases, real life examples we talked about are truly invaluable for our listeners and for myself as well. I will add Fabio's details in the description section if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, whenever you're going to watch us. So you'll have details to his LinkedIn and also the House of AI website. To our listeners, remember that AI isn't just a capability, it's about responsibility too. The organizations that build trust into their AI systems from the ground up won't just be more compliant, they'll be more competitive and more sustainable on the long run. Don't forget to subscribe to AI Everywhere Leaders podcast for more insights on real world AI applications and leadership strategies. And if you found this episode valuable, please do share it with your network and do leave us a review as we try to get this better and better. Until next time, keep exploring new possibilities of AI and remember that trustworthy technology is the foundation of sustainable innovation. Until next time, thank you.